Good evening, dear listeners. Welcome to this tranquil journey into the past, where we will gently unfold the tender tales of medieval life, specifically the serene yet often overlooked realm of scriptorium dusting schedules and manuscript preservation protocols. As you settle in and allow the soft embrace of relaxation to envelop you, I invite you to take a deep, calming breath. Inhale slowly, and exhale gently, letting the cares of your day drift away like leaves upon a quiet stream. Tonight, we will immerse ourselves in the delicate art of manuscript preservation, a practice that has safeguarded the treasures of human thought and creativity for generations. Within the hallowed halls of medieval monasteries, scribes toiled tirelessly, their hands dancing over parchment, breathing life into words that would, in time, shape the course of history. Yet, amidst their noble efforts to illuminate texts and preserve knowledge, there existed another, quieter duty, the meticulous care of the scriptorium itself, where dust could threaten the very integrity of these precious manuscripts. As we journey through this soothing exploration, we will delve into the daily rhythms and routines of those devoted souls. We will learn about the gentle rituals of dusting schedules, a task that may seem mundane but was essential in maintaining the sanctity of the sacred texts. Imagine the serene atmosphere of a well-kept scriptorium, where the faint scent of parchment mingles with the soft rustle of pages being turned, and the quiet whispers of monks reverberate softly against stone walls. We will touch upon the delicate protocols established for preserving manuscripts, revealing how these thoughtful practices ensured that the wisdom of the ancients endured the trials of time. From the careful handling of each page to the careful selection of storage materials, every detail was infused with reverence for the written word. Picture, if you will, the gentle hands of a scribe, delicately dusting the surface of a meticulously crafted book, ensuring that not a single speck would mar the beauty of its pages. As we meander through this history, allow your mind to picture the serene scenes of medieval life, the flickering candlelight casting soft shadows, the quiet hum of whispered prayers, and the rhythmic sound of quills scratching against parchment. With each detail, you will find yourself drawn deeper into a world that, while distant in time, resonates with the universal themes of care, dedication, and the preservation of knowledge. We will also explore the various tools and techniques employed by those entrusted with the task of maintaining these hallowed spaces. From the humble feather duster to the intricate methods of bookbinding, these practices were steeped in tradition and purpose, aiming to protect the invaluable manuscripts from the ravages of time and the elements. Each tool, each schedule, tells a story of intention and love for the written word, echoing through the centuries to reach us here and now. As we embark on this gentle exploration, I encourage you to allow your mind to unwind, to let go of any lingering thoughts, and to embrace the soothing cadence of our narrative. Picture yourself in that tranquil scriptorium, surrounded by the soft glow of candlelight and the scent of aged parchment, where the worries of the modern world fade away into the background. So, dear listeners, as we prepare to step into the tranquil halls of the past, let the peacefulness of this moment wash over you. Allow yourself to be enveloped in the calming embrace of history, where each whispered story serves not only to inform but also to lull you into a state of serene relaxation. With a gentle sigh, let us transition now to the heart of our exploration, the tedious yet fascinating history of medieval scriptorium dusting schedules and manuscript preservation protocols. Embrace the journey, and may it lead you to a place of calm and restful slumber. The history of medieval scriptorium dusting schedules and manuscript preservation protocols is a subject that, while often overlooked, is crucial to understanding the broader context of manuscript culture in medieval Europe. The earliest records of such practices can be traced back to the 6th century CE, particularly in monastic institutions where the preservation of texts was deemed essential for the perpetuation of knowledge. Notably, the Benedictine Abbey of Monte Cassino, founded by Saint Benedict in 529 CE in Italy, serves as one of the earliest examples of a systematic approach to manuscript preservation. During the early medieval period, the architecture of scriptoria was typically characterized by their location adjacent to the monastic library, often featuring large windows that provided ample natural light for the scribes. The scriptorium at Monte Cassino, for instance, was known for its high vaulted ceilings and wooden beams, which aided in maintaining a stable environment for the manuscripts. The floor would often be constructed of stone or packed earth, which was conducive to sweeping and cleaning, a necessary practice given the accumulation of dust over time. The administrative procedures concerning manuscript preservation were primarily dictated by the rule of Saint Benedict, which emphasized the importance of order and discipline. Each scriptorium operated under the auspices of a designated master of the scriptorium, who was responsible for overseeing the daily operations, including the dusting schedules. It is recorded that in the year 742 CE, Abbot Desiderius of Monte Cassino implemented a comprehensive dusting protocol that mandated daily cleaning of the writing surfaces, as well as the manuscripts themselves, to prevent deterioration. This protocol included the use of soft cloths made from linen, which were found to be less abrasive than other materials. By the 9th century, as the Carolingian Renaissance took hold, the importance of manuscript preservation became even more pronounced. Charlemagne, who reigned from 768 to 814 CE, established several scriptoria throughout his empire, including notable centers at Aachen and Tours. The scriptorium at Aachen, in particular, was renowned for its grand architecture, featuring large writing desks made of oak, which were arranged in a manner that facilitated collaboration among scribes. The dusting protocols at these locations were formalized to include not only daily dusting but also a weekly deep cleaning, which involved the removal of all manuscripts for thorough inspection. The administrative procedures surrounding these dusting schedules were meticulously documented in the annals of various monastic communities. For example, the Abbey of St. Gall, established in Switzerland in the 8th century, maintained detailed records of their cleaning routines. A surviving manuscript from the late 9th century outlines a schedule whereby each scribe was assigned specific days for dusting their respective workspaces, with particular attention to the manuscripts in their care. This schedule was strictly adhered to, with penalties for non-compliance ranging from a reduction in rations to temporary removal from the scriptorium. As the Middle Ages progressed into the 12th century, the proliferation of universities and the expansion of secular scriptoria necessitated a re-evaluation of manuscript preservation protocols. The University of Bologna, founded in 1088 CE, became a significant center of learning, housing numerous manuscripts that required rigorous maintenance. The administrative practices at Bologna included the establishment of a manuscript under the chief scribe. Additional scribes, often referred to as copiators, were tasked with copying texts. Each copiator was expected to produce an average of 1 to 2 folios per day, depending on the complexity of the material. The role of the illuminator was also critical. These artisans specialized in embellishing manuscripts with gold leaf and intricate designs. Illuminators were often compensated at a rate of 40 denarii per year, with the potential for bonuses based on the quality and intricacy of their work. The care and preservation of manuscripts were governed by a series of technical specifications that dictated proper handling and storage procedures. For instance, it was common practice to store manuscripts in protective containers, known as cassettes, which were crafted from wood and lined with linen to absorb moisture. These cassettes were typically designed to accommodate manuscripts measuring up to 12 inches in width and 18 inches in height, with a depth of around 3 inches. Each cassette was secured with a simple latch mechanism, ensuring that the manuscripts remained protected from environmental factors. In instances of damage, restoration protocols were meticulously outlined. The use of animal glue, a common adhesive derived from gelatinous substances, was prevalent for repairing parchment tears. The adhesive was applied using a fine brush, with careful attention paid to the alignment of the parchment fibers. Restorers were instructed to use only the smallest amount of glue necessary, typically no more than a pea-sized, to avoid exacerbating the damage. The preservation of ink was also a concern, as the chemical composition could lead to degradation over time. Inks were typically made from a combination of carbon black or iron gall, with the latter being particularly susceptible to corrosion. Manuscripts created with iron gall ink often exhibited fading or discoloration after extended periods. To mitigate this, scribes were advised to store ink pots in a cool, dark place, with temperatures not exceeding 68 degrees Fahrenheit to prolong the ink's efficacy. Records from the 12th century indicate that the attention to detail and preservation was not merely anecdotal but rather an integral part of monastic life. The Cistercian order, for example, maintained detailed logs of manuscript conditions, noting instances of ink fading and parchment brittleness. These logs served as a basis for developing more advanced preservation techniques, demonstrating a clear evolution in the understanding of manuscript care. Furthermore, the financial implications of manuscript preservation were significant. In the late 13th century, the Abbey of Clairvaux documented expenditures that included not just the costs of materials but also the labor associated with manuscript preservation. The average wage for a novice scribe was approximately 20 denarii per year, while experienced scribes might earn upwards of 40 denarii. This disparity reflected the increasing complexity of manuscript production and the demand for skilled labor in the scriptorium. In summary, the history of medieval scriptoria encompasses not only the physical construction of these spaces but also the intricate systems of maintenance, financial management, personnel organization, and technical specifications that defined them. The attention to detail in each aspect of scriptorium management highlights the dedication of medieval scholars to the preservation of knowledge and cultural heritage. The careful planning and execution of dusting schedules, manuscript preservation protocols, and financial records illustrate a profound understanding of the importance of these tasks, ensuring that the legacy of medieval manuscripts would endure for centuries, influencing the practices of future generations. The construction methods and materials employed in the medieval scriptorium were pivotal to the functionality and longevity of manuscript preservation. Typically, scriptoriums were constructed as extensions of monastic buildings, often utilizing local materials such as limestone, timber, and thatch. Notably, the average size of a scriptorium was approximately 15 feet by 20 feet, providing sufficient space for both scribes and manuscripts. The walls were frequently reinforced with wooden beams, which were installed at regular intervals of 4 feet to ensure structural integrity. The roofs, often sloped, were designed to facilitate rainwater runoff, an essential aspect given the potential for water damage to both manuscripts and scribes alike. In terms of interior design, the scriptorium was typically illuminated by narrow windows, measuring approximately 2 feet by 3 feet, which allowed for natural light while minimizing exposure to the elements. The stone or wooden floors were often laid with a slight incline towards a central drainage channel to manage any spilled ink or water, thus preserving both the cleanliness of the workspace and the safety of the manuscripts. Manuscript preservation protocols dictated that every effort must be taken to minimize particulates in the air. Thus, the construction of the scriptorium was, in many ways, a preemptive measure against contamination. Regarding maintenance procedures, the protocols established for the upkeep of the scriptorium were both rigorous and detailed. Dusting was to be performed bi-weekly, with a specific schedule that entailed the use of soft cloths made from linen, measuring no less than 18 inches square. The cloths were to be lightly dampened with distilled water, as it was noted that tap water could introduce minerals that might react adversely with the ink or parchment. Furthermore, the dusting of manuscripts was to be undertaken with the utmost care, utilizing a technique described in the Reguli de Manuscriptis of 1264, which advised against direct contact with the manuscript surface. Instead, a gentle brushing with a goat hair brush, no wider than 1 inch, was recommended. Financial records related to the maintenance of the scriptorium were meticulously kept, reflecting the high regard in which these institutions were held. For instance, a ledger from the year 1291 reveals expenditures amounting to 12 shillings for the purchase of high-quality vellum, which was sourced from local tanneries, alongside 5 shillings allocated to the procurement of specialized inks, predominantly carbon-based, to ensure long-lasting legibility. Additionally, an expense report from 1324 notes the hiring of a dedicated dusting assistant, whose annual salary was set at 10 pence, a sum that was considered modest yet essential for the preservation of the scriptorium's manuscripts. The personnel involved in the day-to-day operations of the scriptorium were critical to the maintenance of both the physical space and the manuscripts themselves. Job descriptions for these roles were typically outlined in the monastic statutes, with the primary positions being that of the scribe, the illuminator, and the dusting assistant. The scribe, often a monk well-versed in Latin, was responsible for the transcription of texts, a task that required not only skill but also a deep understanding of calligraphy. The average scribe could produce between 2 to 3 folios per day, assuming optimal conditions and adequate light. The illuminator, often a separate individual, undertook the critical task of enhancing manuscripts with decorations and illustrations. This role required expertise in the application. In the early 12th century, many scriptoria adopted a design that included large south-facing windows to maximize sunlight exposure. The windows would generally measure about 3 feet high and 2 feet wide, often fitted with simple wooden shutters to control the amount of light during different times of day. The floors were commonly made of packed earth or stone, covered with straw or rushes to absorb dust and mitigate the effects of moisture, which could lead to mold growth on manuscripts. Maintenance procedures in these environments were systematically organized to ensure the longevity of both the manuscripts and the physical space. Regular dusting was conducted on a weekly basis, utilizing soft brushes made from camel hair or fine cloths. The dusting schedule was usually recorded in a ledger, noting the date, the person responsible for the task, and any observations regarding manuscript conditions. For instance, a typical entry might read, "On the 15th of March, 1245, Brother Alcuin dusted the scriptorium and noted a slight accumulation of dust on the shelf housing the Book of Kells." In addition to dusting, the preservation protocols included monitoring humidity levels, which were ideally kept between 40 to 60%. This was often achieved through the use of earthenware pots filled with water, strategically placed throughout the room. Every month, the water levels in these pots were assessed, and new water was added as necessary. Records indicate that in the year 1280, a significant effort was made to maintain humidity levels after a particularly dry summer, which resulted in the consumption of approximately 300 liters of water over the course of 3 months. Financial records from various monastic institutions reveal the costs associated with maintaining a scriptorium. For instance, the Abbey of St. Gall maintained detailed accounts that indicate an annual budget of 200 silver pennies specifically allocated for manuscript materials and maintenance supplies. This budget was itemized as follows: parchment, 60 pennies, ink, 40 pennies, quills, 20 pennies, and additional funds for the purchase of cleaning supplies, 80 pennies. The meticulous nature of these records underscores the importance placed on the preservation and production of manuscripts, as well as the financial commitment required to support such activities. Personnel involved in the scriptorium were typically assigned specific roles, each with defined responsibilities. The head scribe, often referred to as the Magister Scriptorum, was responsible for overseeing the transcription process, ensuring that all copies adhered to the strict standards of accuracy and readability. This position required extensive training, often taking several years, and was typically held by individuals who had already attained proficiency in Latin and other relevant languages. Supporting the Magister Scriptorum were various other roles, such as the scrivener, who would perform the actual writing under the direction of the head scribe. The scrivener's duties included preparing quills, mixing ink, and carefully copying texts. This role was often filled by junior monks or novices who were still in training. The illuminator was another critical position, responsible for adding decorative elements to manuscripts, such as gold leaf and colorful illustrations. The illuminator's work was often considered a specialty, requiring not only artistic skill but also knowledge of various pigments and their properties. The maintenance of the scriptorium also necessitated the presence of a custodian, whose duties included the upkeep of the physical space, ensuring that it remained clean and organized. The custodian was tasked with monitoring supplies of parchment and ink, as well as managing the storage of completed manuscripts. This role was vital, as improper storage could lead to damage and loss of valuable texts. Technical specifications regarding the materials utilized in manuscript creation were equally important. Parchment, made from animal hides, was the primary writing surface. The thickness of parchment could vary, but it typically measured between 0.1 and 0.5 millimeters. In instances where a more durable option was required, vellum, prepared from calf skin, was employed. The dimensions of parchment sheets also varied, with standard sizes ranging from 12 to 24 inches in height and 8 to 16 inches in width. Ink composition was a subject of considerable importance in the scriptorium. The most common ink used during this period was derived from carbon black, mixed with a binding agent such as gum arabic. The resulting ink was both durable and water-resistant, essential for the preservation of texts. The preparation of ink often followed a strict formula, with meticulous measurements recorded in the scriptorium's ledger. For instance, a standard recipe might call for 4 ounces of carbon black, mixed with 2 ounces of water and 1 ounce of gum arabic, yielding sufficient ink for approximately 100 sheets of parchment. The technical specifications of quills were also carefully considered. Quills were typically sourced from geese or swans, as their feathers provided the necessary flexibility and sharpness for writing. The average length of a quill was about 10 to 12 inches, with the nib shaped to a fine point to facilitate detailed script. Scribes would often test quills before use, discarding those that did not meet the required standards of performance. Throughout the medieval period, the adherence to meticulous construction methods, maintenance procedures, financial oversight, personnel roles, and technical specifications contributed to the effective functioning of scriptoria. These elements, while seemingly mundane, formed a complex web of practices that ensured the preservation of knowledge and culture, allowing manuscripts to be copied, illuminated, and maintained for future generations. The careful attention to detail and the systematic nature of these operations speak to the value placed on written works during this era, reflecting a deep-seated reverence for the written word and its capacity to convey ideas across time and space. In conclusion, the tedium surrounding the history of medieval scriptorium dusting schedules and manuscript preservation protocols reveals a profound commitment to the preservation of knowledge. Each aspect, from construction materials to financial records, played a crucial role in maintaining the integrity of the manuscripts that have survived to this day. The dedication of those involved in these processes underscores the importance of their work, a legacy that continues to inform contemporary practices in manuscript conservation and preservation. The tedious history of medieval scriptorium dusting schedules and manuscript preservation protocols. Part 6: Regional Variations and Comparisons. The practice of manuscript preservation in medieval scriptoriums was not monolithic; rather, it exhibited significant regional variations, shaped by local customs, climate conditions, and the availability of resources. For instance, The scriptoriums of the British Isles were often characterized by their damp, temperate climate, leading to distinct challenges in manuscript preservation. Dusting schedules in these regions were typically more frequent, with a standard operating procedure dictating that dusting be conducted at least twice a week. As the centuries progressed, particularly during the High Middle Ages, advancements in materials science led to notable changes in manuscript preservation. The introduction of new ink formulas, which were less prone to fading and smudging, prompted scribes to reconsider their dusting methods. By the 12th century, the practice of using damp cloths for dust removal became popular, as it was believed to reduce the risk of damaging the ink, a practice that, while effective, introduced new concerns regarding the potential for moisture damage to manuscripts. By the late medieval period, the burgeoning interest in humanism and the revival of classical texts further influenced manuscript preservation practices. Scriptoriums began to adopt more systematic approaches, such as the establishment of designated preservation officers, who were responsible for maintaining the integrity of the manuscript collection. This role often required the individual to be well versed in both the physical care of manuscripts and the philosophical underpinnings of knowledge preservation, leading to a comprehensive understanding of the importance of dusting and preservation. Part 9: Bureaucratic Regulations and Laws. The bureaucratic regulations surrounding manuscript preservation and dusting schedules were often as convoluted as the manuscripts themselves. Ecclesiastical authorities frequently issued edicts that dictated not only the frequency of dusting but also the qualifications of those responsible for such tasks. For example, in 1234, Pope Gregory IX issued a papal bull that mandated the establishment of a formal manuscript preservation guild, which was tasked with overseeing the maintenance of manuscripts across Christendom. This guild was required to document all dusting activities in a ledger, which had to be submitted annually to the local bishopric. Failure to adhere to these regulations could result in significant penalties, including the potential excommunication of the monks involved. Such regulations reflected the high stakes associated with manuscript preservation, as the loss of a single text could be seen as a spiritual failing on the part of the monastic community. In addition to ecclesiastical laws, various regions enacted their own preservation statutes. In the Kingdom of England, for instance, the Statute of Manuscript Preservation, circa 1301, outlined specific protocols for dusting and preservation, mandating that all monasteries maintain a minimum of 2 dusting ceremonies per month. Furthermore, the statute required that all dusting activities be conducted in silence, as it was believed that loud noises could disturb the spirits of the authors whose works were being preserved. Part 10: Supply Chain and Logistics. The logistics of dusting schedules and manuscript preservation were often overlooked in historical accounts, yet they played a crucial role in the effectiveness of these practices. The supply chain for dusting materials was complex and multifaceted. Monasteries often relied on local artisans for the procurement of necessary items such as brushes, cloths, and storage containers. For example, the production of fine goat hair brushes in the region of Auvergne became a significant industry, with local craftspeople creating specialized brushes designed specifically for the delicate task of manuscript dusting. Additionally, the logistics of transporting these materials were fraught with challenges. Monasteries were often situated in remote areas, necessitating long journeys to acquire supplies. The establishment of trade routes and the development of a network of trusted suppliers became essential for maintaining the necessary stock of dusting materials. The careful documentation of these supply chains, often recorded in the monastery's financial ledgers, provides insight into the intricate relationships between various monastic communities and local artisans. Moreover, the integration of logistic considerations into dusting schedules was paramount. For instance, the monks of the monastery of St. Gall developed a detailed calendar that outlined not only the dusting schedule but also the optimal times for restocking dusting supplies. This comprehensive approach ensured that the scriptorium was always equipped with the necessary tools to maintain the integrity of its manuscripts. Part 11. Record-keeping methods. The methods of record-keeping in relation to dusting schedules and manuscript preservation protocols were as meticulous as the practices themselves. Each scriptorium maintained a dedicated dusting ledger, a bound volume where all activities related to manuscript care were chronicled. These ledgers often included detailed entries regarding the date and time of each dusting session, the individuals involved, and the specific manuscripts that were attended to. Furthermore, many monasteries adopted a system of color-coded entries to signify the condition of each manuscript before and after dusting. For example, red ink might indicate a manuscript that required special attention due to significant dust accumulation, while blue ink signified a manuscript that was in excellent condition. This system allowed for quick assessments and facilitated the prioritization of care based on the urgency of preservation needs. In addition to the dusting ledgers, some scriptoria employed the use of preservation scrolls, which served as a more narrative account of the history and significance of the manuscripts in their care. These scrolls often included annotations about previous dusting practices, insights into the types of materials used, and even anecdotal references to notable scholars who had visited the scriptorium. The meticulous nature of these record-keeping practices highlights the importance placed on manuscript preservation within medieval society. The act of documenting dusting schedules and preservation protocols was not merely a matter of practicality, it was also a reflection of the reverence held for the written word and the recognition of the fragility of knowledge. Conclusion. The intricate and often mundane history of dusting schedules and manuscript preservation protocols in medieval scriptoriums reveals a complex tapestry woven from the threads of regional variations, evolving practices, bureaucratic regulations, logistical challenges, and diligent record-keeping methods. Each aspect, while seemingly trivial in isolation, contributes to a broader understanding of the cultural and historical significance of manuscript preservation during this pivotal era. The dedication of the monks and scribes to the preservation of knowledge is a testament to the enduring power of the written word and the lengths to which they would go to protect it from the ravages of time and dust. The tedious history of medieval scriptorium dusting schedules and manuscript preservation protocols continues to unfold in its labyrinthine complexity. In this installment, we shall delve into regional variations and comparisons, the evolution of practices over different time periods, bureaucratic regulations and laws, supply chain logistics, and record-keeping methods, all while maintaining our commitment to exhaustive detail and an unhurried academic tone. Regional variations and comparisons. Throughout medieval Europe, the practice of manuscript preservation and dusting in scriptorium environments revealed a fascinating tapestry of regional differences influenced by local customs, available resources, and varying ecclesiastical priorities. For instance, in the monastic centers of England, in contrast, in the arid regions of southern Europe, such as the monasteries located in Provence and Catalonia, the lower humidity levels allowed for a more relaxed approach to dusting. Here, the protocols often stipulated a monthly schedule, with the rationale being that the dry air naturally preserved the manuscripts better than the damp conditions of the north. The use of woolen dusters, which were believed to have the magical property of attracting dust particles due to static electricity, became popular in these areas. Monks would often embellish their dusting tools with decorative motifs, turning a mundane task into an expression of artistry. As we venture into the heartlands of the Holy Roman Empire, we observe that the scriptorium practices varied significantly between the regions of Bavaria and Saxony. Bavarian scriptoriums, influenced by the influx of manuscript-dedicated guilds, adopted more formalized dusting protocols, often inscribing their schedules within the margins of their manuscript inventories. In contrast, Saxony, with its emphasis on individual monastic traditions, maintained a more ad hoc approach, where the dusting schedules were often dictated by the personal whims of the head monk rather than a consensus. The comparison of these regional practices underscores the variety of influences that shaped manuscript preservation efforts throughout medieval Europe. Each area adapted its methods to suit local conditions, leading to a rich tapestry of practices that reflected both the environmental realities and the cultural attitudes toward knowledge preservation. Evolution over different time periods. As we turn our gaze to the evolution of dusting and preservation practices over time, it is essential to recognize that the medieval period was not monolithic. The practices of the early Middle Ages, circa 500–1000 CE, significantly differed from those of the later Middle Ages, circa 1000 to 1500 CE. In the early period, scriptoriums operated under a more rudimentary understanding of manuscript care, often relying on oral traditions passed down through generations. Dusting was seen as a secondary concern, overshadowed by the more pressing need for copying texts. However, as the demand for manuscripts increased, particularly following the Carolingian Renaissance, the importance of systematic dusting and preservation began to take root. By the 12th century, the establishment of universities and the burgeoning interest in classical texts led to a greater emphasis on the longevity of manuscripts. This era saw the advent of more formalized protocols, with the introduction of written guidelines that delineated dusting frequencies and techniques. The growth of trade routes also facilitated the exchange of ideas about manuscript care, as monks and scribes traveled from one region to another, sharing their practices. By the late Middle Ages, the proliferation of the printing press began to alter the landscape of manuscript preservation significantly. The urgency to maintain hand-copied texts became intertwined with the burgeoning print culture, leading to a paradoxical situation wherein the dusting protocols became more elaborate as the importance of manuscripts waned. Manuscript preservation societies began to emerge, advocating for the meticulous care of texts that were deemed culturally significant. This period also witnessed the introduction of specialized tools, such as the manuscript vacuum, a contraption that employed bellows to remove debris without damaging the delicate pages. Bureaucratic regulations and laws. The evolution of these practices also gave rise to a complex web of bureaucratic regulations and laws governing manuscript preservation. As the importance of these texts grew, ecclesiastical authorities began to recognize the need for standardized practices to ensure the longevity of their libraries. In several regions, councils were convened to establish guidelines, resulting in a plethora of decrees that outlined specific dusting and preservation protocols. One particularly notable decree was issued by the Synod of Tours in 813 CE, which mandated that all monastic communities must establish a dedicated scriptorium and adhere to a schedule for the cleaning and maintenance of manuscripts. This decree not only standardized practices but also emphasized the spiritual significance of preserving sacred texts. The penalties for non-compliance varied, ranging from fines to ecclesiastical censure, reflecting the serious nature of these regulations. As we moved into the 14th century, the rise of secular authorities further influenced manuscript preservation laws. In many regions, local rulers began to recognize the cultural and economic value of manuscripts, leading to the establishment of guilds dedicated to the preservation of literary works. These guilds often lobbied for protective regulations, ensuring that proper dusting and preservation methods were implemented in all public libraries. This bureaucratic oversight resulted in a more cohesive approach to manuscript care across regions, although local customs still played a significant role in the execution of these protocols. Supply chain and logistics. The meticulous practices of dusting and manuscript preservation were not without their logistical challenges. The supply chain for the materials necessary for proper manuscript care was an intricate web of local and regional networks. The cloths used for dusting, for instance, were often sourced from specialized weavers who produced linen and woolen fabrics according to the specifications dictated by local monastic authorities. The procurement of these materials was often a communal effort, with monasteries pooling resources to ensure a steady supply. The logistics of transporting these materials could be cumbersome. Monks would often travel for days to acquire the finest dusting cloths, sometimes trading manuscripts as currency. The exchange of goods often occurred at local fairs, where scribes and monks could also engage in discussions about best practices in manuscript care, further enriching the knowledge base of the community. Additionally, the introduction of new technology, such as the water wheel and improved road systems, facilitated the movement of supplies. These advancements allowed for the more efficient delivery of essential materials, which in turn influenced the regularity of dusting schedules. The increased availability of quality cloths meant that monasteries could adhere to more rigorous cleaning routines, ultimately leading to better preservation of manuscripts. Record-keeping methods. Finally, an exploration of the mundane yet crucial aspect of record-keeping methods reveals the depths of the meticulous nature of manuscript preservation protocols. The importance of maintaining detailed records of dusting schedules and manuscript conditions cannot be overstated. Monastic communities developed a variety of methods to document their practices, ranging from simple ledger books to elaborate illuminated manuscripts that meticulously chronicled each manuscript's condition and the frequency of its care. In many scriptoriums, a designated scribe would be tasked with maintaining these records, often using a codex format that allowed for easy reference. Each entry would include the title of the manuscript, the date of the last dusting, and any relevant observations regarding its condition. The history of medieval scriptorium dusting schedules and manuscript preservation protocols is a labyrinthine journey punctuated by the meticulous practices of lesser-known historical figures who played pivotal roles in the maintenance of manuscript integrity. While many luminaries such as Alcuin of York, Peter Abelard, and Hildegard of Bingen are celebrated for their contributions to medieval literature and learning, it is the minor figures, often relegated to the margins of history, who executed the daily drudgery that kept the wheels of scribal culture turning. Their lives and the protocols they adhered to are a testament to the era's dedication to preserving knowledge in an age when such endeavors were fraught with challenges. #minor historical figures and their roles. One such minor figure was Brother Reginald of St. Albans, a Benedictine monk who lived during the late 12th century. Reginald was not known for his theological prowess or literary genius, rather, he was the appointed dust keeper of the St. Albans Scriptorium. His daily duties included the meticulous dusting of manuscripts, a task that involved not only the physical removal of dust but also the assessment of the manuscript's physical condition. Reginald would often note the state of each manuscript in the Dust Keep Ledger, a now lost work that has been referenced in various monastic records. His entries, characterized by a pedantic tone, included observations such as, "The Book of Hours, Folio 23, exhibits signs of dust accumulation, recommended intervention by the scriptorium's appointed scrutator." Another notable yet obscure figure was Sister Agnes of the Poor Clares, who served in a scriptorium located in the Abbey of San Zeno in Verona during the early 14th century. Sister Agnes was particularly diligent in developing a systematic approach to manuscript preservation that included a seasonal dusting protocol. Her efforts culminated in an annual Manuscript Health Day, wherein every manuscript was examined, dusted, and repaired if necessary. The protocols she implemented were documented in her treatise titled De Manuscriptum Custodia, which, while not widely circulated, offered insights into the practices of preservation during her time. Sister Agnes noted, "It is the dust that, like a thief in the night, steals both beauty and clarity from our sacred texts." #specific case studies with dates. A prominent case study can be drawn from the year 1250, within the walls of the Abbey of Cluny in France, where a significant effort was made to standardize manuscript preservation practices across multiple scriptoriums. Abbot Hugh of Cluny convened a council of scribes and dust keepers to address the increasing concern over the degradation of manuscripts due to neglect and dust accumulation. The resulting document, known as the Cluny Protocols, established a rigorous schedule for dusting and maintenance. The protocols mandated that every manuscript be dusted at least once a week, with an additional thorough inspection every month. Each scribe was required to log their cleaning efforts in a communal ledger, which included details such as date, time, and condition of the manuscript before and after dusting. A sample entry from the ledger, dated June 15, 1250, reads, "The Life of Saint Benedict, manuscript number 564, dusted at the hour of terce. Condition, satisfactory, with minor dust accumulation observed on folio 12. This methodical approach not only improved the physical state of manuscripts but also fostered a sense of accountability among the scribes." Another illustrative case is the Great Dusting of 1325, that took place in the Scriptorium of the Cathedral of St. John in Lyon. The event was precipitated by a devastating incident where a fire, attributed to a candle left unattended during the evening hours, threatened the integrity of numerous manuscripts. In response, the cathedral's chapter ordered an exhaustive dusting and preservation effort, unprecedented in scope. The event, which lasted 2 weeks, involved not only dusting but also the application of protective varnishes to the most valuable texts. The records of this event reveal the lengths to which institutions would go to secure their literary treasures. A rather dry entry from the Lyon Manuscript Preservation Register states, "On the 7th day of the Great Dusting, the Book of Psalms was found in a state of peril, requiring immediate intervention." ### Comparative analysis with other regions. The practices of manuscript preservation and dusting schedules were not isolated to Western Europe. They found parallels in various regions, albeit with differing methodologies and cultural significances. For instance, in the Eastern Orthodox monasteries of Mount Athos, the preservation of manuscripts was entrusted to a specialized group known as the bibliophiles. These individuals followed a rigorous schedule that was significantly influenced by the region's climatic conditions. Monastic records indicate that during the summer months, when humidity levels were high, a bi-weekly dusting was deemed necessary to prevent mold and deterioration. Conversely, in the Islamic world, manuscript preservation practices reflected a different cultural approach. Scholars in the House of Wisdom in Baghdad adhered to a more fluid schedule, heavily reliant on the materials used for binding and the inks employed in manuscript creation. Rather than adhering to a strict dusting schedule, Islamic scribes focused on the environmental conditions, such as ventilation and light exposure, as primary factors in manuscript preservation. A hypothetical quotation attributed to a 9th-century Arab scholar might read, "The ink shall be as the soul to the parchment. Should the parchment breathe, the ink shall flourish." Archaeological findings and interpretations. Recent archaeological findings have shed light on the practical applications of dusting and preservation protocols in medieval scriptoriums. Excavations at the site of a former scriptorium in the town of Glastonbury, England, have uncovered remnants of dusting implements made from fine brush bristles, dating back to the 12th century. These brushes, often made from the tails of horses or other animals, were specifically designed to delicately remove dust without causing damage to the fragile parchment. Analysis of these tools has revealed were patterns indicative of repetitive use, thus supporting the notion that regular dusting was a common practice. Furthermore, the discovery of a manuscript fragment from the late 13th century, found within the scriptorium ruins, has provided invaluable insights into the storage practices of the time. The fragment, which includes marginalia detailing dust accumulation, suggests that scribes were acutely aware of the dangers of neglect. The text states, beware the dust, it creeps like shadows upon the pages, obscuring the clarity of the written word. This fragment has prompted scholars to re-evaluate the perceived importance of dusting schedules within the broader context of manuscript preservation. ##### Primary source quotations, invented but plausible. To further illustrate the sentiments surrounding manuscript preservation, one can reference hypothetical primary sources. As we navigated the intricate details of dusting schedules, perhaps you found yourself imagining the soft rustle of robes and the delicate whispers of quills gliding across the pages of illuminated texts. Each manuscript, a treasure, was lovingly cared for, as scribes understood that the weight of history rested upon their shoulders. The protocols they followed, though often tedious, were imbued with a deep sense of purpose, a commitment to safeguarding the written word against the relentless march of time. Through our exploration, we've seen how these meticulous routines were not merely chores but sacred rituals, reflecting a profound respect for the wisdom contained within those fragile pages. The quiet diligence of those medieval caretakers resonates even today, reminding us of the importance of preservation in our own lives. Just as they tended to their texts, we too can nurture our own moments of peace and tranquility in the present. As we draw the curtains on this chapter, I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude for sharing this time with me. Your presence has made this journey all the more meaningful. If you find yourself wanting to revisit the soothing tales of the Scriptorium, remember that this audio experience is always here for you. Feel free to replay it whenever you need a gentle reminder of the beauty in patience and care. Now, as you settle into your own cozy space, may the echoes of our exploration lull you into a restful slumber. Let the calming cadence of our discussion wrap around you like a warm blanket, inviting serenity and peace into your heart and mind. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and allow the gentle waves of sleep to carry you away to a realm where dreams flourish and worries fade. Wishing you a night filled with tranquil thoughts and sweet dreams. May you awaken refreshed, with the promise of a new day ahead. Good night, dear listeners, and may your rest be as peaceful as the manuscripts we've cherished together.